Hey, I'm so glad you could join us yet again, another edition of Stuck No More podcast. Really excited that you join along with the journey because we're kind of going in a direction in the next few podcasts that has to do with your finances, coaching, making money online, finding your voice through your career. So, this edition has been brought to you by stucknomoreprofits.com. Go to forward dash slash start and you'll get an idea of what you can expect as help resources for you. So I'm so excited to bring up Tania P. Brown to the stage. Tanya, you're yet another person I've met through Michelle Tufford's group.
Mhm.
You can find out more about the group at that link down below. But we have this thing that we network, and it may only be 8 minutes, Tanya. But when you got on for those 8 minutes, I'm like, whoa, come on, we need to talk to her.
Mhm.
So thank you so much, and everybody, welcome Tania P. Brown to our stage.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, tell them what you do, and then I'm gonna peel some layers off of your story.
Sure. I am a job exit financial coach. That's a whole lot of words.
I like
Basically, I create financial plans for aspiring coaches with a very specific focus for women over 40 because we do things a little bit differently and our
it.
voices so deserve to be heard.
And am I ever passionate about helping the voiceless? I like that you said over 40 because a lot about the 40-year-old, we get to that point where am I going to do this for the next 20 years? So they really need someone that's going to map them through. Do you find that at 40 they're either haven't started yet or they're ready to get out of corporate America?
Very much so, and then statistics back it up. You have I think it's like something like 61% of people have a desire or a business idea, but 92% do not follow up on it,
Wow.
and part of that reason is finances. And
Wow.
again, all professions are compassionate, but because I deal with coaches, I have a heart for people who have the compassion and
Mm,
courage to take what a lot of times are painful experiences
yeah.
and wanting to use that to serve others. And I don't think finances should be their barrier to that, and it
Wow.
doesn't have to be.
So you're dealing with coaches, so are they do they come with you like poverty mindset? Well, I don't know what to charge, or do they just like, how do I do this and really make money? What are some of the questions they ask you?
Yes to everything you said. Um, the first part is the mindset, and
Mm,
I think particularly over 40, I'm in my 50s, so I do deal with a lot of women over 50. You have, especially for us Gen X, you
yeah.
have 30 years of being trained on a very specific
Mm,
formula. You
yeah.
go to school, you get a job, hopefully you like it, you work in it for 30 years, you save up a pile of money, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you're relearning a different formula, and it's something you haven't seen, so
Yeah.
fear
Yeah.
is a lot of what I get. So part of the financial plan, I wrap it around helping people navigate the highs and lows of the emotions.
Yeah.
With that, I do find a lot of people have unconsciously trained their voices to go void. So
Wow.
they stop dreaming,
Yeah.
they stop remembering what it was like when they felt powerful. So helping them revisit that person that in some cases got buried between caretaking for other people, whether it's parents, their job. And I find a job is really great at fitting you into a box. And if you don't fit in that box, you begin to believe the problem is you versus you're
Yeah.
just not in the right place. So helping them reframe their thinking, but yes, overwhelmingly, part of what I do is I help women work on refining their prices. Just universally, I find women grossly underestimate their prices.
Very well said.
And the way I see it in the industry, it either goes in two directions. It's a think it and they will come and pick a number, or the formula looks like it was done by a PhD in accounting, so you
Mm,
feel lost and frustrated. So I walk them through a very simple formula so they understand their pricing. They feel comfortable. So I always go to what is the minimum price we need for you to
okay.
have for you to sustain your business and sustain the life you want to build with that business.
Wow. That's so good. It is so true that we are trained in the school and then a job, and
Mhm.
there's no opportunity just to have some financial literacy to really understand, hey, wait a minute, the market pays marketplace pays for value, you may very much have some value in your talent that the marketplace will pay for. So let me take you back. I want to pull out some of this amazing
Mhm.
backstory. So take me back to the kitchen when you saw
Oh,
your mom,
yeah, yeah,
bills laid out, and she looked up at the calendar and
yeah.
sighed. Take me back. I don't know how old you were, to the emotions that brought to you when you saw that within
Oof,
your mother.
I feel emotional even as I talk about
That's
it. Someone had challenged me to go back to my earliest money memory.
mm,
And my earliest money memory, I may have been 7 or 8, was
okay.
watching my mom at the kitchen table, bills spread around her,
Oh,
and she would look down and look up at this plaque, and it's amazing. It's 40 years plus later, and I remember it, and it was like, "Lord, help me hang on one more day."
wow.
And it was I may not have had the language, but even a child knows despair.
Yeah,
Even a child knows feeling that there's no hope.
right.
And the words were never spoken, but
Right.
what I learned was that poverty was inevitable and
Mm,
that people who had money were either corrupt
wow.
or just plain lucky.
Yeah.
And that was the narrative I started off with in my adult life.
Wow. I believe firmly, good or bad, you have threads that go back to your
Mhm.
childhood that create who you are today. Now, I also believe those threads could be tragedy,
Mm,
abuse. So your story, your thread is how you recovered. Same for you. Like threads for me. If I go back to my threads, I'm 7 year olds climbing up the stairs and looking out like a crowd of big as Billy Graham, and I'd preach, and I was
mm,
Catholic. So that was my thread. But so I also believe this is why I wanted you to touch on that, because there's threads that go to where you were. So then you grew up, and did you join the services to escape? You accumulated some debt, but who hasn't? But did you go to the service? Thank you for serving, by the way. Did
thanks.
you go? Were you in the army?
Yes, I was in the army.
Did you go to the army to escape, or just that was just what you felt like you needed to do?
Well, since it was over 30 years ago, it was a little bit of both.
Okay.
I felt there was more to my environment
Okay.
than what was around me. And I lived in this weird parallel universe. So I had a mom who was poor. Like, if for those of you who are old enough to remember, I remember being on the free cheese lines
Yeah.
growing up. On the other end, I had a dad with a law degree.
Wow.
Not to say he provided any level of financial support. So when I was with him, I saw one way of life. When I was with her, I saw another.
Wow.
And even though he may have had a law degree, he managed his finances. I did love him, but just not very well. So
Okay.
it was poverty. So I tell people, do not assume because of someone's degree that they are living well. So on both ends, I saw poverty. I just saw poverty from two different sides.
Wow.
So I think I joined the army thinking there's got to be a better way. I don't want to live in either person's world, but I didn't know what that was.
Right.
So I joined the army with my 0 level of knowledge, and we're talking the early 90s. And
Wow.
in the early 90s, for all of us that remember, they were giving out credit cards like kids get candy on Halloween. Like, if you just knew it had a C in it, you had a credit card. So I very quickly racked up credit card debt. I honestly think it was retail therapy
Yeah.
because I was 3,000 miles away from home, but I
Oh,
was in Hawaii, so don't have a whole lot of sympathy for me.
yeah.
That's where I was stationed. So just racked up a ton of debt.
Okay.
And when the credit card bills came, I thought payment was optional. The credit card companies disagreed.
Yeah.
In the military, they send I don't know if they still do it now, but
Okay.
they send non-payment letters to your commander.
Oh, okay.
So, to this day, I feel so sorry he had to deal with me. So, I'm called into his office, and I
Yeah.
have to explain why I didn't pay my bills, and I'm like, "Well, what's the big deal?"
Oh,
I will forever thank him for his next step. My punishment was that I had to create a financial plan to get
wow.
out of debt and to save. This did not click for me. I was just like, "Oh, thank God I got off easy." Like, that was because it could have been a lot bigger.
Right.
A year later, my grandmother died, and that
Oh,
savings plan allowed me to pay
oh,
for both my and my mother's funeral so the funeral expenses to go to my grandmother's funeral.
oh,
It was the first time I saw the connection between the things you do now and how money can be a tool to help the
oh,
people you loved.
so good.
That is when the connection between money as a tool to benefit the people you love and build the life you want connected. And the first job I got after I left active duty, I still was reserves for a while, I was at a bank, and
Wow.
apparently that stuck.
I love this. You were starting to learn how to leave a legacy right from the pit of getting out of debt. And I believe legacy. I like what David P. Green said. He's the founder of Hobby Lobby. He said legacy isn't about leaving a load of cash for your kids. It's about active joy and
Mhm,
active giving. And I love how you say how that's a tool, because let's talk about credit card debt, okay?
mhm,
Sometimes I you have to use your credit card to sign up and get help from Tanya P. Brown. That's not consumer credit, that's investment.
yeah.
And anytime I've learned I can use credit as a tool for investment, I find ways, because of the training, that I'm able to get out of debt. So when we talk about credit card debt, retail therapy. I remember my mom lost my dad at a young
Mhm,
age, and woo, did she spend money in the stores? That
mhm.
was her therapy. I don't think she racked up credit because she had my dad's thing, but that I love how you go to the mental root before you even deal with people. Because a lot of ways, someone say, "Oh, finances, I don't want to talk to this." Let's bury our hand. I mean, I have a meeting with my CPA tomorrow. I'm not really looking forward to it, but let's lay it on the table. So, how do you get people to get to that place where they're willing, one, to listen to you and see that there's hope out of the credit card debt?
It's because, I think it's a trend that for people to be self-employed, and so
Uh,
many influencers
yeah.
kinda do the marketing for me. They say you need a financial plan before
Okay.
you quit your job. So to some degree, it's really not that difficult. I find people come to me because they know they need a plan. But
Okay.
I do back up. The first thing I get people to do is to start to think of what's on the other life of the other side of the quit.
Okay.
What's their why for
Ooh,
wanting
so
this?
good.
What life do they want? And especially for, I guess because I'm over 50, I'm sensitive to my Gen X homies and people over 50. We have so buried our dreams in caring
Um,
for other people. We've
yeah.
buried our dreams in the company we work for, business objectives that we've
Yeah.
forgotten.
Yeah.
So getting them to revisit what those dreams are, revisit what life you want is the first thing I do
Yeah.
before I even get to anything else. And then the next step from there is I go over what I consider the mindset shifts needed to go from employee to entrepreneur. And this was from my own
This is
experience.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, the things that served me well as an employee was self-sabotaging me
Wow.
as an entrepreneur, and I had to make the shift, particularly because I find a lot of women were like myself. They may have been a former executive, high income earning, and what you did work, you saw evidence of it. So I just found there were these mindset shifts that I found I consistently had to work myself through and I had to work other women through. So
Yeah.
that's a decent part of what I do, and that's before we even get to the numbers.
I understand. And I love to hear you say that, because getting to the numbers without those mental shifts will get you nowhere.
Yeah,
Uh,
you will look at everything through a perspective and what I find is you will accidentally self-sabotage yourself
yeah.
out of business. And one of the things I mentioned was the success formula. When you are an employee, the success formula is you get a technical education, you get an education, you get a job, you do well, you get the accolades, you get the income. Well, when you are a business, it's not so much about, particularly a coach, it's not your technical aptitude, it's your ability to transform.
Wow.
The shift becomes from the technical aptitude to how you transform, and this was my lesson learned.
So good.
Transforming people meant I needed to use a lot less technical and a lot more understanding what are those emotional barriers. When you are an employee, you get rewarded. When you are an employer, you get complaints. When you are an employee, you get promoted. And as a friend of mine once said, when you are an employer, you are the whole C-suite.
Yeah.
And again, this is and I do find a level of what I call certification addiction. If I
Uh-huh.
get this certification and I'm like, it's not
Ooh,
the certification, it's the transformation, and that can be really pricey.
right.
So
Yeah.
one of the things I end up doing is training in sales psychology, and you would think it's sales psychology so they can sell. I'm like, "No, it's sales psychology so they can stop being sold to."
That's so good. Oh my goodness. So what's that is that I mean, can you break that down briefly? You said it's sales
Psychology.
psychology?
Yeah. Once we understand that formula and how like when you think about it, if you take the employee to employer, so you are so used to getting accolades. Whereas when you are an employer, as employee, when you are an employer, there are no accolades.
Mm,
So you have the marketing that feeds into that desire to hear you are great, you're
right.
wonderful, but buy my product. I'm like, if you start to hear those, what is that triggering?
Oh, like, "Get away from me."
Yeah. I wanna make sure they understand their triggers. If they feel like they are not enough, I'm like, "That is a marketer's sweet spot. Beware of when you feel like you're not enough." And it
Oh,
seems like that is the perfect time when they show up in your LinkedIn or they show up or
yeah,
magically it pops up on YouTube.
right.
So, being aware of those triggers and understanding, is that marketing speaking to that trigger, and is that the reason why you want this product? Maybe you should pause. I am a big believer in using business coaches, but I'm like, pick one and just do everything they say. Because
Wow.
I'll oftentimes talk to someone who have 4 coaches, and
Yeah,
I'm like, having 4 coaches doing the same thing is like driving a car with 4 wheels going in different directions. Each coach is wonderful, but each coach builds on their services and their methodology. So you're trying to fit 4 different methodologies that may take you in 4 different
yeah.
directions. And I find that person isn't picking up traction. And I find it's significantly adding to how much they're spending on their business. So it also becomes a financial thing.
Wow. I went through some trauma from a previous marriage. She's no longer alive. And I was blessed. I was the work of God that I found a neurocycle, like mental. But as I've been with her, she's gone to the Wharton School for Neuroscience Business. She's just completed MIT. And it's like, you got to have a coach. I don't know where I'd be because being an entrepreneur can be lonely. Now, I
Very.
will say thank God for places that like my friend Michelle Tufford and
Yes.
I are part of with some inexpensive mastermind, but also more than that, just a community. I think it's 39,000 plus. They're all Christian women in the same place. So, how do you teach that, hey, don't be a ranger. I'm going to be here once a week, but you've got 6 more days to take care of yourself. How do you encourage them to find like-minded communities that aren't trying to sell you something, or how do you balance around that?
So I mentioned earlier that as part of what I do, I kind of walk women through kind of setting the foundation for what kind of life they want. I
Okay.
We walk through what are those mindset shifts. The third part of that part of my program is I have them create a spiritual battle plan.
Nice.
Because I truly, as a believer, I believe Satan is battling you. For me, I always say the cries of the people out there are the prayers that your gifts were meant to answer.
Ooh.
So,
Oh,
to
my
me,
job.
Satan would want to do nothing more than put a stop to that. And
Wow.
it is so easy because the world is gonna tell you you're not good enough, and you are.
Yeah.
You have past experiences that you will lean on. Like, I tell people half jokingly, every failure you've ever had in your life comes up when you have a business. I forgot, I believe her name is Ashlyn Carter. Her name is Ashlyn Carter. She's absolutely amazing, a copywriter. And she had once said that owning a business is the craziest self-development experiment a human being would choose to perform on themselves. So that bubble gum you stole at 6 years old will come up in your
Oh
head
my
as the
gosh.
reason why you're a failure. So I have every woman we work together on what is and I'm a soldier. What is the
Yeah,
battle
I
plan
like that.
you are going to create to combat what is going to happen on this journey?
Yeah.
So, as part of my battle plan, one of the items is a battle buddy. So
Mm,
I have it from day 1, you have to
so
have
good.
community.
Thank
You
you.
have to have that person who's going through the same journey because
Mm,
they get it, and I do find people are well-intentioned, but a lot of times they will project their insecurities on
yeah,
you
yeah.
and mask it as critique. And so you would get so many naysayers. So even if it's a Facebook community where you can just hear someone on your own journey, and then when you hear someone saying what you're thinking, you realize that you're not alone.
Wow, that's so good, man. I often think that making money is spiritual warfare.
Very much so.
And so a lot of times the battles people are going through, I'm still coming out of the battle of I'm not good enough.
Mm,
That was the very first thing my then mental coach got on me. And I struggle with that today. I mean, not today, but that if I'm in a like, then it's that I'm not good enough. I'm not making enough money. I don't have enough clients. I don't. So what you're saying is so relative that we're all responsible for a part of it, but you can find support, but you got to find the people that celebrate you and don't just
mhm,
tolerate you. I mean, I
mhm.
think that's a bad the
Cool.
people who I always say there's a line to a song that I've picked up. Stay close to the people who feel like sunshine.
Mm,
Stay close to the people where you can like spaz out and they're not gonna leave you and they're gonna sometimes you just gotta have someone to sit with you. Okay, this is
yeah.
the way I'm feeling. And the fact that I believe that you come from that mindset and that help set, that you're more than a financial coach. You get if you give them the full thing. And obviously because we love Jesus, we even get that full thing that comes with it. So how personally do you feel like your relationship with God arms you? Like for example, a number of years ago, I was having my quiet time with God, and I'd get all these marketing ideas, and I'd push them away. And then I saw this pastor who said, "You're having time with Jesus. If He gives you an idea, write it down. Don't think that's very
Mm.
religious of me. I got to push it away." I find some of my best marketing plans and even words come from that relationship. How does that work with you?
It is foundational, in my opinion, to everything you
Oh, so
do. So to start off your day opening yourself to
good.
God, like the first thing I do is I go over the armor of God. One
Mm,
of the things I did, and this is not me, I got this suggestion from somebody else and it was excellent.
okay.
I put me in there. So the parts of the armor of God where instead of you, I put Tanya. And then
Ooh,
I recited word for word, but hearing my name in the armor of God is so powerful because I
that's
know I'm going to have spiritual warfare. So if I don't, again, probably the soldier in me, but if I am not ready and to prepare for battle, I will receive information differently.
wow.
Having space where I could just let God speak. And also to me, for every person I speak to, there are 3 of us. There is me, them, the Holy Spirit. I
Um,
want him present
so
because things will come up. Sometimes I will get an impression to say something. Sometimes they will get an impression. So having space so God can
wow.
speak into an experience, it gives you a different lens.
Yeah.
It helps to shape your perspective because I find the days where I don't start off with that, my perspective goes off on salesman. And we live in a culture that teaches you you're not enough, especially if
Yeah.
you're older. It's like you fall off this relevancy cliff
Yeah.
when you're 40, and when you look at the people in the Bible, they were just getting started in their 90s. So
Wow.
you begin to have a shift in perspective because now you're looking at it through a biblical lens. And I
Yeah.
truly believe if God has put something on your heart, it is an act of obedience and stewardship to move forward.
Ooh, man, I'm gonna have to listen to this again. Wow. Phew. So I want to go back to that tip. So you say Tanya puts on the helmet of salvation.
Yep,
Tanya puts,
exactly,
Teresa puts,
exactly,
I'm gonna say,
and I say that out loud. That was a tip from someone, but
oh, it's
when
good.
I changed it to my name and then I recite it, it just takes on a completely
Yeah.
different life, but yes.
And you are on so much the front line of where the enemy wants to steal, kill, and destroy. I mean, the enemy wants you to use that credit card and go off to Nordstrom's or some expensive, where God's saying, use the credit card as a tool and get into Tanya's group, get
Mhm,
into her training. I get excited when I see people. I'm not afraid to talk about money, but okay, it costs this much, but put it on a credit card.
mhm.
That's not consumer debt. Then you make your payments. So Tanya will help you make your payments.
Yeah, it's having a plan in advance, and I would say one of the things in the financial industry is, like,
Yeah,
there's this constant battle. It's like either people believe credit cards are an instrument of Satan
mm,
or they believe it is a second coming of Christ. I believe
yeah,
it is neither. I believe it is
right.
a tool, and
Mm,
in prayer, asking God, "How does he
yeah.
want me to use this tool?" Having a plan to pay it off,
Yes.
strategically thinking how if you're going to put money into this, how is this going to work for you long term? So
Yeah.
I'm not for or against using a credit card. I think it's the right thing for the right
Right.
person. If you are
Time.
going to use it in business, use it with
Yeah.
strategy, use it with thought, and please use it with prayer.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking mostly to coaches who um correct me if I'm wrong, but sometimes coaches, they don't have any clients yet and they spend all their time busy. They take in too much information. Like,
Very much so. Very much so.
and they try to get their desk perfect. I'm speaking on myself, and then, okay, what else do I need to do? I need to read that on Instagram because it had some points that I need to ask for. We're so much information. I think one of the biggest problems is we have information overload instead of action going forward. So how do you just, I mean, how do you talk to that, and what are your some of your tips for the information overload?
Every place I looked in the Bible, God needed that person to take the first step for him to move. So to me, nothing happens without action. I believe
Yeah.
passion is kind of a cue. And also, I do think this is a lot more simplistic than people think.
Yeah.
All I say is do what God put before you. There
Yeah.
was a story. This it was a story someone told me, and it was about. I think I heard her on a podcast, and she was talking about this is. I have a point here. I promise. Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
She had talked about Michael Jackson in one of his videos, and I forgot the video, but
Yeah.
everywhere he stepped, it lit up. But he wanted to dance all over the place. And
Okay.
the person who was producing the video said, "You can dance all over the place, but if you don't step on the specific spots I put you on, nothing is going to happen." And I
Whew.
truly believe there's a faith element to that.
Yes.
Follow the steps and the pathway God puts before you. A lot of times, only one thing is lit, but that's all you need. And
That's
just
so good.
trust that the next step will come. I
Yeah.
truly believe it is that simple. I don't care if all you hear is go to this website, just go and
Yeah.
just wait for the next action. I think we feel like we have to have everything, and we don't. And
Yeah.
I have never talked to a business owner who said they felt they had everything from the beginning. So
Yeah.
I always say, what is the next step?
That's
Just
so good.
do that.
You're s
And
you're
just
so speaking to me. I mean, I can't tell you. It's funny because my coach on the business is saying, "Teresa, get into redirect and learn all you can about it." Well, I'm over here with my company on a platform that I feel like I'm in the valley of the shadow of death, and it's TikTok. I did all right, but it was just killing me on the inside. It was killing my person. It was my ego, how many likes. So I finally, on my own, I said, no more value of the shadow of death for me right now in TikTok. And so I got on the call and then she's like, Teresa, redirect. Right. This is just a business, guys. It's just a name redirect. And so since doing that, I get on my major company call and what are they talking about? Redirect. So I feel like I got two steps forward, but I like what you said. That's what's lit up right now.
Yep.
Okay, I may have one client, but I may not have lots of clients, but I can put my all, what God gives me, my wisdom and my ideas, and really get in there so I can better serve the clients who want that source. It's a all-in-one source where you can have your email, your funnels, your videos all in one place, and you can make 100 websites, which I wouldn't advise. So that to me was like you just spoke a picture. Okay. I'm gonna be a little funny. I'm not going off too far, but I used to substitute and teach in Louisiana. And I don't know what it was. Okay, this is just a funny. Can we just have the sit back for a sec for something funny? Everywhere I taught from let's see, it was like third grade to fifth grade, I'd enter but they would enter and I'd hear this Michael Jackson, Michael Jackson. They thought I looked like Michael Jackson. So one day, I don't ask me. One day I went to a fifth grader. I said, so you think I look like Michael Jackson? I was really thin, had black hair that went down. She goes, yeah. I said, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Oh, no, that's a good thing. I would go into Walmart and all of a sudden I'd hear this, Michael, from the student.
Hey, if it works.
And it's like, but that now let me tell you, let me give you an insight. That was where God told me to be. I did not want to be a substitute teacher. There's an old phrase on a Saxon church in England that says, do the next thing. When
Yep.
my husband died, left me homeless.
Mhm.
I wanted to do what I'm doing, but I had to make money so I could have pay my rent. And I'll never forget it. It was like, do the next thing. So once again, I entered the substitute field. But when God tells you to do the next thing, listen, don't just stop there, listen again. And I said, oh, God, I'm just a substitute teacher. And he says, no. He says, you're my secret weapon in the kingdom of God. I want you to love those kids. We weren't supposed to put our hands on them. You go ahead, put your hands on them, love them, and speak into their identity. So it gave me a whole different perspective of doing something I really didn't want to do, and that's be a substitute teacher until I could get out of the hole. So you may be getting asked to do something before you can go to Tanya. Maybe you need to do the next thing and save some of that money so you can go into your coaching business. So you can, you can't fake it to make it. That's social media today. They can spot you in a heartbeat. If you're on there and in the back of your mind, you got that credit card you want to pay off, it comes through.
Very much so.
You gotta come from that place of, I want to serve. I have a gift, and this is what I'm going to do. So, anyway, Michael Jackson side note. So, oh my goodness! But I'm glad I mentioned that because that was my husband was still alive, and my husband, I've just forgiven him, and it's amazing what happens when you forgive someone financially. He had there were addictions, gambling addictions that
Mm,
replaced other addictions, and so we went from very huge, lots of money, but we never had lots of money.
mm.
I did the books and all he could think of is the money he made. He couldn't look at the bills we had to pay. So I shouldn't have been doing his books. I wasn't a CPA. So I would work 40 hours on the radio station
Wow.
and then have to manage his business. I would carry the pressure of the weight because all he thought was bringing in money. So I say all that to say, make sure when you do the next thing, I don't think God will call you to something that you don't have a little bit of talent there or gifting that he's going to refine. So do the next thing with wisdom at the same time. What do you think about all that?
Yeah. Do you mind if I read a Bible verse to
Oh,
close?
love to. Goodness.
So this is like I'm looking at I have my vision board in front of me and my life verse is Galatians 6:4-5, but I love the message version.
Okay.
And I tell people it is literally the best career guidance I've ever heard. So it starts off with the message version, make a careful exploration of who you are and the work you've been given. So the first thing is, especially by the time you're our age, you know what you like, you know what you don't like, you have some hints. Just follow the scent. And then it has and then sink your teeth into that.
Mm.
So you're being told to follow. Do not be impressed with yourself because God gave you your
Oh,
gifts that
yeah.
belong to Him and they're meant to serve other people. Interestingly, the next line is don't compare yourself to others. This is your
Mm,
journey and your way. And then
mm.
the next line is each of you must take responsibility for doing the creative best you can with your own life. This is your walk,
Wow.
your life, and it's not to be compared to others.
Wow.
And I just think that is just the best career advice summed up in a couple of verses in the Bible.
I love that. Wow. Mm. That's like a sum up of do the next thing, but
Really,
one
just
Bible verse.
hey, I tell people it's not that difficult. Just
Wow.
do well, it's easy in action, but mentally it's hard. Just
Yeah.
do the next thing, even if it makes no sense,
Yeah.
and just trust for the next step.
And I often think when God's telling you to do the next thing, it may not be in your line of field, but somewhere you're learning something that will help later on. For one of my do the next thing after subbing was to be this was fairly short after my husband died, was to be a customer service for Nike. So I'd be on the phone, but I would be getting words like my husband would say to me when they're upset. I hung in there for 5 months.
Mm,
And finally I said, my emotional and my getting over the drama and trauma is not getting anywhere at this job. So once again, I said I can't do it, and went back into subbing briefly, and then some things started to fall into place where I
yeah,
could do what I love, and that's make money. So wow, this is just, I hope someone, if you listen and you're listening on the podcast, you need to turn this over, or you need to listen to this week, because Tanya has dropped some gems on us. And I love that you help coaches, because you're the soldier behind the warrior who has to face
I love that.
women. You're the soldier behind the warriors out there who are really trying to make a difference with their coaching business, to see people get over. I don't know what I would do without my coach personally. If there's one that would, if there's, it could be one person that can make that much difference in your life, you as a coach could be that person, like my coach is. Think about that. You can change the trajectory of them, which has this amazing rebound effect on your family. Like my kids, they didn't want to do anything with me because they referred to me as their dad. But once that broke down, now my healing, I'm seeing it in my daughter. I'm seeing it in my son. And I'm not doing anything. I'm just still loving them and letting them, and they're in my life now. So think about it. You, Tanya, are arming up your own warrior, your own team, so that each one of those people can make a difference. But they got to have someone that's going to tell them how to shoot the gun, how to put the armor on. Because some people, if you go on Instagram, please don't scroll to just take time away. You can scroll purposely, because people are showing you where they are 40 years and you're down here, or they're showing you their highlight reel. A lot of the people that you really admire, they're 20 years into their journey. So don't think, oh, I'm not like her. Huh. I love
That's
Jen Gottlieb. I don't know if you know her. She's a speaker, and she's always quick to say, hey, listen, you're seeing my 20 years ahead. So don't compare. I think you can go on Instagram and learn a few things, and stuff. So I'm not against social media.
I
Or
think
I do think I'm challenged by you, Tanya, to get back, to get on some platforms like in LinkedIn, that when you really are trying to serve a business person, because ultimately we need people like you to command the troops and get out there, because listen, this is what I want to end with. This, the story of Joseph so inspires me. As a
mhm.
young boy, he was smart, but his brothers got jealous. So we know the journey. Went to the prison, got back out, got back in prison. All the while, God's honing him to the point where he's able to interpret Pharaoh's dream and save not just a nation, but he saved his family. So I believe now more than ever before, God is raising up Josephs. You don't have to be, you can be a female and be a Joseph.
I
And
love that. Yeah.
that's what gets me fired up, because part of my business is helping people make money with my Mastering Online Profits, but it's just the same thing of making money with this program called Redirect, because I want them to be the hero of their family. I want them to be able to bury their grandfather. I want them to be able to get their kids off the streets and into some good programs. I want them just to be the hero and give their family hope. If there's anything that charges me up, and I keep finding, I keep running into Joseph in my daily readings, but don't despise not being in the pit. No pit is so deep that God's love is not deeper still.
That's what I love about the story of Joseph. Like, if you really it's such a powerful story because when you start to unpack
Yeah.
Joseph, 1, the man was sent to prison for something he didn't do.
Hello.
So, the fact that you may be in a place or a space that you can ask yourself, "Why am I here?" to your blue in the face. There is no reason. It is unfair. We are in a broken and fallen world. And he could have walked out of there with bitterness. So when I started asking him about dreams, he's like, "I'm not answering no dreams. You put me here." That's the route he could have
Yeah.
gone.
What do
But
you want? What do you
he
think, man?
he remained a servant and he
Yeah.
continued to serve. So even if you're put in a place in a space that's not of your own doing, God can do something remarkable
So good.
with
So
that.
good.
And the time frame from the
Yeah.
time he was given the dream to a time it came to fruition, it was quite a bit of years. So understanding that there's God's time frame and there's yours, and oftentimes there's a disconnect between the two. And when you begin to take the time out of it and instead say, in my lifetime,
Mm,
what do I want to do? Who I want to serve?
true.
Taking the expectation this has to happen tomorrow helps you to see it from a much broader perspective.
Yeah, that's so good. So I want to go full circle to voiceless,
Mm,
to being a hero of your family. Now, I'm really sensitive, Tanya, to people who their pit is who they're married to.
mm,
And that's a tough one.
yeah.
But being a that's a journey. But ultimately, God is not again. God is, doesn't like divorce, but He's not about abuse either.
Mm,
So your first step might be to get yourself in a safe place
yeah.
where you can truly work on your dreams. God gives us those dreams. He gives us the desires of our heart. It's like, once again, He wired that in your very DNA. You came out of your mother's womb and you were meant to be something. You played it, and then life happened.
And I do want to make a comment about that because I find a lot of people think safe is physical, and I find
Oh,
emotional abuse can hit far worse than
are you,
physical abuse.
oh,
Or if you are around people, family members who are just nasty and
yeah,
negative, the same goes for that safe space. I
yes,
always say, do not invite everyone to the party of your dreams. They do not deserve it. Be
very good.
very careful who you speak to about it. It is okay. So sometimes that safe space may be that business coach or it may
I
be that
believe that.
community.
Yeah.
But if you're not in an emotionally safe space to share your dreams, I think I will double down on
Yeah.
finding community to go to.
Because it's like you don't give your pearls out to just
Exactly.
anyone. You're set to fly like an eagle, and they're crows, and that you're intimidating them.
Mm,
And sometimes they may be offended by the majesty of God on your life. So you do need a safe place. Just happen to be hands on into a very safe place
mm,
online, believe it or not, and it's called no longer dry ground. Please go and check it out and join a safe group. That's how I met Tanya. I'm
yeah.
meeting great people, but they're not just, yeah. You may have, well, Michelle monitors who talks. So you're not going to hear a bunch of women whining. You're going to be hearing women call each other up. You're going to get to be a part. Like, I love the Tuesdays where she puts us off into different rooms. And when Tanya entered the screen, she lit up. Now, maybe God made her light up more because maybe God said, Teresa, you need to really hear what she had to say, because this whole interview, I swear I'm going to be listening to it twice. But do you see what we're saying? Don't share. You A lot of times you say yes to too many things and you let people in. But when you say yes to someone, like, no, I'm not going to share my plan. When you say yes to someone, when really it's a no, you lose a part of yourself.
Mm,
And it sends a signal to your brain you can't trust yourself.
yeah.
So find, and even in the context, I'm not a, I mean, I believe God uses social media. I don't live my life out on Facebook. You shouldn't either, people, friend. But I, I got to tell you this. In my 26 years of total control and abuse, I can tell you I found life on Facebook. I had safe places, and I found obviously life in the word. And then I found something I didn't God didn't explain it to me till after he passed. He said, you were winning the war on your voice, even though you didn't think so. But step by step, you were winning the war because you were journaling. And I used to hear the voice of the vine dresser. And I couldn't conjure him up. It was just like, listen to the vine dresser. And he'd just speak to me emotionally right where I was. Later, I see that later. And I had 3 books. I took them down because we're going to republish them. But later on, after he's died, I said, God said, Theresa, that's how you were winning the war on your voice. I said, what do you mean? He said, it was lined in your DNA. You let my Holy Spirit
Mhm.
came and you created the way God creates. So
Mhm.
when you create the way God creates, he'll line up the times when you need Tanya. He'll line up the times when you need to be just in a free, safe group. That's part of the journey because I believe you are meant to create the way God creates. That's not thee, thou, thou. It's create the way God creates in your family, in your business, in your singing, in your writing, in your coaching. When we do that, the union of the Holy Spirit to that will help you so much overcome the trials, the battle when you go forward because you're battled and you're armed because you know you have a mission, you know you're creating the way God creates you. So I just had to add that. So
Oh,
because I like what you said. You don't have to remove yourself physically, but emotionally. I think the emotional abuse is the worst. So separate yourself. Find people who will celebrate you, like I said, not just tolerate you. Find people who will cheer you on. And you know, I'm sorry, but the modern day of that is a Zoom call. I mean,
mm,
because we can't travel, but I have gotten so much help interviewing people like you, going to my friend who's my therapist and who's my business coach one on one on a Zoom call. That's why I'm going to come pull this full round. That's why we're so for this safe place in this group. Because if you go to a network, you're getting shuffled around. Next thing you know, you have someone to connect with.
yeah.
And you know, I have met some of the neatest people in that. Whoa.
Mhm.
Hey, Jen, do you know Jen Rogers? She's just popped in. Jen, the podcast.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I think I just spoke to her on Friday. I think
She's,
she is
did
awesome.
you do a podcast with her?
No, we're in
Jen, you
another
need to get
group
her.
together. Hey, Jen. So
If
funny.
you're listening, we're just having a little fun with the comments coming in. So, wow, this has been so good. You've said so much, but if you could round out just a paragraph in words to leave someone to give them hope. Yes, God called them a coach.
$100.
What's their next step?
Yes, there is a children's book, I don't remember the name of it, but it was written by Jordan Rainier, and in the book,
I've
he had
heard of
given
him.
the challenge, and it's so beautiful that you know, we oftentimes think day 7 of creation was the end, and he's like, "No, it was the beginning. It was the
Mm,
beginning of God passing the baton to us to create." So, there are people out there that are crying, that are desperate for the things that, again, I mentioned this earlier, that your gifts were specifically meant to answer. God passed the baton to you to be the answer to those prayers. The world is a hot mess. We need what you have to offer. So please, from a totally selfish reason,
yeah.
go out there and serve those people because we need you. And do not think that what how you are called to serve, do not let it be diminished because it may not be valuable to where you work or the people around you. God does not make mistakes. Those
Yeah.
gifts he put in you are as precious and as valuable as
Thank you.
everyone else. If I had to leave one message behind, you are
Yeah.
valuable, you are worthy, your gifts
Mhm.
are needed.
Yeah. And often it says in the word, your gifts will make room for you.
Absolutely.
Wow, this has been so good. So if you want more information, go to tanyapbrown.com,
Yes.
right?
Yes. And I do have a free 30-minute discovery call,
Come
and
on.
literally, it's to discover your next step. I
Okay.
jokingly, half jokingly say I've been around since the dinosaur age. So if I am not your best fit, I can probably point you to who that is.
Yeah.
And if I am your best fit, I love being the keeper of people's dreams. So
Oh,
it is
so
my
good.
honor to walk with you on this lake of your journey.
So where will they get that free? Is it on your website?
It's on my website. You can sign up for a free discovery.
Okay. And you're also active on LinkedIn.
I am active on LinkedIn as well. Yeah.
Awesome.
Mhm.
So I think live or recorded on my podcast, I think some of you need to start your journey. You know, God's called you to coach, and you just need someone to lay the foundation. And then what's I love it, it's so mental first, and then you get to the nuts and bolts
Mhm.
of the business. So wow, thank you, Tanya. God bless you. You
Yeah.
know, I believe God's using you truly in a new army, and God's putting you in the front because He knows you can protect those behind you. And I see you running into a battle of ravaged dreams and ravaged people, but I see you plucking them out,
Yeah.
saving them, putting salve to their wounds, giving them the mental, again, showing them how to get their helmet back on,
Yeah.
and they become the army that goes in directions that you would never go. But it's one person
Mhm.
who's helping all these people to reach more places.
You're making me tear up as you say,
Um,
because that is my passion. Oh my gosh, I
um,
feel like I'm gonna tear up
that's
as you're talking.
God. That's God. I just wanted to leave with a little, if it hits you, then that's a right word. So, well, God bless you. And thank you so much. Once again, check the show notes. If you're listening on our podcast, it's Tanya P. Brown, a job exit financial coach who's been my guest. I know halfway through you thought, who is Theresa interviewing? TanyaPBrown.com. Please at least sign up for a 30-minute and get your life back where God has called you. And we need more godly coaches out there. So God bless you. I'll talk to you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening to the
You.
Stuck No More podcast.
Thanks.
Hang on.